You win. We save the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decoding TV. We're going to be talking about the Pluribus Season 1 finale. Happy, Merry Christmas, Carol. I'm David Chen. Joining me is Patrick Klepek. All right, Patrick, you and I have watched the Season 1 finale. We are going to spend today talking about our overall thoughts. I got some emails that people have written into decodingtv@gmail.com. And then we are going to be talking about what exactly happened during the course of the episode, breaking it down for you. So, Patrick, let's talk about it. Pluribus Season 1 finale. What did you think of the season finale overall?
I thought it was pretty good. I have to say my expectations were sky high, and also I just wasn't sure how this season was going to end. I think one of the big questions you and I have had thinking about this show is they keep talking like they're going to do this for multiple seasons. Like, what is the structure of this show going to be? Like, who are the characters? And I think the season finale delivers in the sense that it puts a period on Carol's emotional arc. And I think it nails that. What it was trying to do over the course of the season with Carol and her relationship with the others, the hive mind, whatever you want to call them, I think it nails that part. I do think it leaves on a pretty frustrating note in the overall cultural context and production context of how long it will probably be until we get to revisit these characters. But if I push that down, I am very, very excited about where this show is probably going next, because I think it promises to be a very different show in season 2. And that is itself very compelling.
Right. I think that we anticipate probably 2027, right, is when the show will return. And so it is going to be a long wait until we see more Pluribus, is our guess. Like, that is our guess. Who knows? Maybe something will change, but like, hard to imagine. They haven't even started filming the next one yet, right? So they're not going to be filming for another a few months. And so it's hard to imagine this being done in time for 2026, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. My thoughts on the Pluribus Season 1 finale. I kind of am right there with you. I think this is a very solid episode of the show. And basically, here is what I would say. This finale advances the story to the place where I had hoped we would be by the halfway mark of Season 1. Right? Like, that's the thing, is like, it really feels like half a season's worth of plot developments. Obviously, I wouldn't say it leaves on a cliffhanger, but it leaves a massive number of questions unanswered that are going to be addressed in season 2 and beyond, we anticipate. And so, on the one hand, great episode, so many fun moments, so many emotional moments. I was cackling through much of the episode. I had a great time watching the episode. And also, wow, I wish we had gotten a little bit further along in the plot by this point. So those are the two feelings.
I think this is going to be one of those seasons of television where it reminds me a little bit of the conversation around Lost, in which, are you here for the high concept show? And there's also, and like, sure, like the characters and like, they keep me moving along, but like, I kind of want to see like how all this resolves. I think what this episode reveals is the show is it's not interested in that stuff, but it is interested in it as a vehicle to tell a story about Carol. And I don't know if the show will maintain that dynamic, but I thought this was a very satisfying season of television for Carol. Like, the arc of Carol, I think by being as slow as it was, I think it allowed itself to reach a very natural, earned conclusion for her arc. I am deeply sympathetic to people who go, yeah, like, I'm into that. But also, I really wish this alien invasion plot was like a little further along. I just don't think the show is as interested. It moves at the pace that Carol moves. And I think that the invasion plot is going to move at that pace. I suspect that pace is picked up, in season 2 for reasons we'll get into as we just discuss the show. But I'm not going to be surprised if people find themselves in a pretty frustrated place. And I do think some of that is going to reflect, are you on the same track that the show is? And I think by the end of this episode, it reveals it's on Carol's track. And I think that could be a very frustrating one for a lot of people. I was not, but I can understand if you're there for the mystery. I just don't think this show is it doesn't find itself tugged along at the pace that I think a lot of other shows would progress the broader mystery of what's going on.
Well, you are right that I think overall Carol has a pretty satisfying arc this season. I mean, again, we can argue about the pace of that arc, and again, she's realizing things in this episode that I literally called, many episodes ago. By design. I'm not saying like Vince Gilligan and
well, it's not a mystery box
creators
show, like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's not this. I don't think this is something where
right
putting together. Yes, there are things that you called out, but I think the show doesn't treat that as like a shocking. I mean,
right.
It's not like whoa, like if you like, you know what I mean. Like it's shocking,
Right.
but it's not an anchor of the show. I guess is what I'm saying.
Debatably, but
Okay.
but yes, I think the overall the sort of broader plot. If that's kind of something you're interested in, you may have some qualms about how far this has gone. Okay. Before we actually get to the recap, let's talk about some of the things that people wrote in over the course of the last week or two. And you can always write into us at decodingtv@gmail.com and comment at decodingtv.com and post on youtube.com/decodingtv. This show, by the way, is a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So be sure to subscribe. We're covering other shows throughout the year. And it's been so wonderful to basically feel like we have a little community going of Pluribus watchers here on the internet. And it's been wonderful to read people's speculations and theories and so on. Next week on the podcast, we will be talking about some of your reactions, some of your theories, some of your reactions to the season at decodingtv@gmail.com. So be sure to stick around. You're going to want to hear all those reactions that other people have. But first, somebody commented at youtube.com/@decodingtv. How can the Hive use sarcasm? And I did notice that as well. You noticed Zosha during last episode was being playfully sarcastic with Carol when they were playing croquet. And they have never shown sarcasm before. So I don't know if it's and I don't think we really learned that much about it this week after this episode. So I don't know that we really have an answer to that question. But I did clock it and I was like, that is strange. Like we've never seen the Hive do that before. They also had difficulty recognizing sarcasm in Carol, right? So it's like we had thought that maybe sarcasm was beyond their comprehension or ability to execute. But I guess they have the ability to be sarcastic and playfully sarcastic. So when they say you're the worst, Carol, that's technically a lie. But
that is interesting. I wonder from their perspective, they're not lying, but regurgitate, they're using existing data. You know what I mean? That is I think the show is just don't worry about it. I think that's just enjoy the joke.
That's how I'm feeling about it for now. Who knows if there'll be an in-universe explanation at some point. Okay. Josh C writes into decodingtv@gmail.com. Subject line, fruit wants to be picked. I really enjoy your weekly discussions and I love Pluribus, but there's one thing that really bothers me about the fruitarian aspect of the joined. He's referring to the fact that the joined do not pick fruit or kill vegetation or whatever. I know I'm being pedantic, but plants create fruit specifically to be attractive to animals as an evolutionary tactic for seed dispersal and propagation of their genetic material. It's necessary for the fruit to be picked and consumed, quite the opposite of being harmed by it. I won't let this get in the way of my enjoyment of the show, but it's an annoying knit I can't quite seem to shake. Thanks for the great content, end quote. That's from Josh writing into decodingtv@gmail.com. Patrick, any reaction to the fact that fruit wants to be picked and therefore by picking it, you're not killing it, you're actually helping it to realize its evolutionary final manifestation?
Yeah, I buy it. That's very funny. I think if you were to start to go down that in the same way, us picking apart, can they do sarcasm? I think there's a little bit of the high concepts have to be cut off at some point in order, you know what I mean? Well,
I think it's also that the Hive operate under specific principles,
right?
Whether or not those principles achieve what we believe is the intended outcome. And what I mean by that is it's okay, we're not going to lie to you, or we want to help Carol and make Carol happy, right? And so we're going to basically do whatever Carol says. If that means giving her an atomic bomb let me just put this out there. I don't know if that would make Carol happy. I don't know if giving Carol killing instruments is going to make her happy, but like they're going to do it anyway. So they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think how the world works and what the intentionality of things is incidental to the hive's rule.
Well, the fruit can't speak, right?
The fruit can't speak. But even if the fruit, I'm saying even if the fruit could, well, actually, if the fruit could, and say,
I think
like,
if the fruit could, if they could go pick me, I think actually the hive mind would be happy to help the fruit out.
Yeah. Mark B writes into decodingtv@gmail.com. The last episode made this point clear. The signal was transmitted to Earth from Kepler, but the imperative to retransmit it from Earth suggests that it likely didn't originate from Kepler either. Who knows how many planets and systems this signal has traveled through? That's a big reason why we'll never see the aliens arrive. The original civilization is probably long dead, and it's a suicide signal. It's likely going to destroy all intelligent life in the universe. End quote. Who knows if we'll ever get an answer for that question of what the signal was for, Patrick? But are you sympathetic to this viewpoint that its intention is to destroy all intelligent life in the universe?
Yeah, I think the hive would argue otherwise, but as demonstrated by the consequences to humanity as a part of the joining, and then essentially the ongoing suffering that will result from the lack of available food for the human population. Yeah, I mean, it does sort of feel like that is the natural outcome of the spreading of the joining. Is that it's just meant to spike intelligent life more broadly.
And by the way, no argument with the no argument with the intention of the program. Perhaps intelligent life has been a mistake. That's very, very conceivable. So,
and I sort of feel like the question of this and the propagation of the virus. Do you feel like we have these questions about like what is Pluribus going to be over multiple seasons? I do feel like ideas now have kind of been sketched out. It's like, all right, well, clearly I feel like the second season is going to be, a Carol under the gun to try and solve the most immediate problem of, being potentially being turned herself. The next step is how do we stop from building and like propagating the signal and spreading it out. Like I suspect those to be various steps along the way of what this show tries to tackle.
Indeed. I think you're right about that. We definitely get a sense of that in this episode. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk about what actually happened this episode. The Pluribus Season 1 finale, La Chica o El Mundo, which means the girl or the world. So, oh, by the way, there's one other point I wanted to make about this episode of Pluribus that I wanted to put in my overall thoughts, which is that this totally captures my experience of trying to live in another country using a translator app and not fully understanding the language. And I've really, really loved this episode for that.
Why would the weirdos send me that video?
I asked them to.
Yo se les pedí.
For those who don't know, I'm currently living in Portugal, and I have some. I thought I thought Manousos would show up with like a fluent English, and they wouldn't need to use translator app. I'm like, I have about Manousos' understanding of English in this show, and I frequently need to pull out the translator app and use it with people. And this captures kind of the overall experience, the limitations, the joys, the moments of revelation.
I'm glad they did it this way. Like, it's a much more, we discussed this last week. Like, okay, they appear to be setting up a way to, if they want,
right,
perhaps straining a bit of, credibility on how fluent he would be. But like, all right, fine. Like, he learned enough to mostly talk to Carol. But they really test the boundaries of that in a really fun and interesting way that adds to the tension of their dynamic. I thought it was exceptionally well done throughout the episode.
So the episode begins. We're at 71 days into the joining. And I don't know about you, Patrick. I was like, what the hell is going on? What are we doing here? Who are these people? There's a plane. The plane is significant somehow. But we learn that we're in a Peruvian village, and we meet one of the remaining unjoined, a girl named Kusumayu. Turns out a package is being delivered to a Jeep and driven to Kusumayu, and we kind of come to understand as time goes on that it's the chemical compound that's going to help her do the joining. And she does the joining by inhaling vapors. Then when she awakens, she has been joined. And then people take away all of her stuff, and then she just becomes one of the joined, and that's that. And I have to say, Patrick, freaking brilliant scene, brilliant execution, chilling, haunting, because like it's a stark reminder of everything that is lost in the joining, right? It is that all these little things, like they kind of had her little room. She had a little room in her house, and she was holding this little, I think it was a baby goat.
Mm-hmm.
And they were singing all these songs. And then the moment she's joined, it's like, hey, none of that stuff is necessary anymore. She doesn't need her own room. She has there's no preferences, no personal preferences. We don't need music or song anymore. And by the way, the animals have no idea what the hell's going on. I thought this was brilliant. It reminded me of some of the best parts of this series so far. Wonderful opening. It reestablishes what the stakes are of trying to be unjoined. It reminds you what are the little tiny things that make us human. Amazing opening sequence. Patrick Klepek, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Especially given that the show, at least under its current constraints, choosing to remove a character from the board is a big deal. I do expect the show will find ways to tilt that dynamic over time, but in the moment, to take a character off is to limit the storytelling of the show. And so to take one of these characters who we haven't met, we've only heard about, I'm with you. It was the moment it dawns upon you what's about to happen.
Right.
Like it's the show. It's like we're not hiding a gun under the table. The gun is the gun is being waved around, and you get to sit with that as she goes through this moment, and it's like eminently relatable why she chooses to make this decision. Her community is lost. Like she had this is a seems like a broadly isolated community, kind of like lives on their own, fends for themselves, and robbed of all of that. Why wouldn't you take, or at least consider, what is possible in the joining? I think it's a reasonable decision on her part. But as it dawns upon you, everything that's about to be stripped away from her, from this community, from humanity, it's easy to forget some of that as we've gone along the season and tracked Carol. But like by isolating this one character, stripping it down and just using her as a vehicle to examine what the joining does, like you just think about what that means more broadly, and really like does a great job of amping the stakes up for the season. So it was exceptionally well done.
Yeah.
I was very upset at the end.
Yeah,
the scene
it's an upsetting scene.
Like,
and,
oh fuck.
The way the execution. I love the plane landing. Like they have all this plane stuff in the show that's incredible. And there's a guy just standing there at the end of the runway, and it's a beautiful show. The show looks freaking amazing, and so this opening scene reminds you of the show at its best, firing on all cylinders. We cut to Albuquerque. Manousos Oviedo is about to arrive, and Zosia decides it's best for her to leave. Good call. Manousos arrives, and he says, "My name is Manousos Oviedo. I'm not one of them. I wish to save the world." And then they have a huge argument about whether or not to use the translation app on Carol's phone. She's saying, "Hey, I have it on airplane mode, guy. Like, you don't need to worry about it." But Manousos is so hardcore. He throws that phone straight into the storm drain, and Carol basically tells him to F off right away.
Give it! Give it! No!
But Manousos eventually relents. He uses his machete to dig the phone out of the storm drain.
Extremely
and
good.
Says, "Okay, you win. Telephone, yes. Ambulance, no," because he wants her to meet in the ambulance. But I need an umbrella, and so they go outside, and he has the umbrella because he really doesn't want them monitoring him. I have to say, the whole episode, I am just having a blast because I'm cackling with glee because Carol is finally encountering somebody who, to her, is as difficult as she is to everyone else. And that is immensely satisfying to experience, right? So I'm having, because this guy is way more hardcore than her. She's doing things that he's horrified by. and it's just wonderful to kind of see that dynamic at play. But yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
And it's also a reminder of just how I know that this is a show that has moved in many ways at a glacial pace, but it's where Carol started in her relationship to the others and where she has arrived is a long ways. I mean, now granted, her and Manousos start in different places in terms of extremities. I think where Carol has to start because of Helen, and like I think it's understandable why she starts in a different place with her relationship with the others. But it is also, again, I think does in the same way the opening scene does. This character is a good, stark, like look yourself in the mirror reminder of like what happened, what's changed about you, and what is at stake. And so he functions on a lot of different fronts in a way of really kind of clarifying where we've come and where we've gone over the course of the season.
Yeah, the contrast between him and Carol is it does show a lot. It shows a lot of things she's learned, serves some plot functions as well. But yeah, it illustrates kind of the extent of her arc. Agreed.
He's also just a very funny actor. Like his range is really interesting because it's only barely tapped to over the course of this episode. But he is deeply funny, and I bet has like a really soft side to him. And there's like this big like mean front, but also suggests like a person who could be utterly terrifying and sinister if they chose to be. Like there's just so much you can do with that character and that actor that has me very excited for the future.
Through a series of conversations, Carol conveys some basic details of the hive to Manousos. For instance, they can't lie, they can't hurt people. There's a great moment when she says they wouldn't even hurt an ant. You know, they're not evil. They wouldn't even hurt an ant. And then he says, is it not evil to value a human the same as an ant? Which got a good point. This guy, he's
had time to think.
He's hitting homers. But eventually Carol sets Manousos up at her neighbor's house, and Manousos is really suspicious of taking someone else's space. Anyway.
So it's not your home, which was really good. But he is going to stay there.
There is a scene where they find a kind of surveillance device, but it was put there by Helen. And this was actually kind of cool because it actually served multiple functions. It was some character development for Carol, but it also reminded you that Carol had her eggs frozen, which is a point that was brought up several episodes ago. But now they remind you because it's extremely relevant to what happens later on in the episode. Of course, if you're a listener to this podcast, you already remember, you don't need the reminder, because you already knew that was coming, that reveal is coming. But regardless, hey, I maybe they thought it was too subtle the first time. And I mean, Patrick, I kind of think on some level they were like, they thought they were being a little clever, that's my.
I'm genuinely serious. Like, David, you've been doing this too long. You podcast with too many smart people.
Yeah.
I would not have clocked this.
All right, fair,
that's just not.
fair.
That's just not the. I also like if you're not sitting and listening. I'm just. I think they made reasonable assumptions about where people would end up by the episode. I think some shows can get that wrong.
Yeah.
Like. And I think this show gets it right in which I think it's surprising if you didn't pick up on it, but doesn't feel as though the season unravels because it hinged upon a single mystery that if you clocked it in advance, what was the point of watching? Which I think is
that is very true.
Reveals like that have to watch, walk. And that this show not being a mystery box show, it has mysteries, but it's not like the entire satisfaction of watching is like, why is this happening? Or what's going on here? The show can kind of, work in two ways. So
just to be clear what we're talking about for those who don't know, like I kind of predicted that the eggs, Carol's frozen eggs would come into play and would be part of being necessary for the joining. And that turned out to be true in this episode. However, I despite that, I am still admiring of the fact that you're right, Patrick. If you didn't have that all in mind, the way it played out in this episode, it reminded you Carol has frozen eggs, and also did some character development with that instead of just like a random thing that comes up and it's not meaningful. Like it did it in a way that it's like, hey, remember Helen did this when you were having your eggs frozen because she didn't want you drinking, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, like Carol gets to have a moment about it in addition to just reminding the audience of the information.
Well, and in addition, I think we had someone write in earlier in the season about Carol's relationship to alcohol, and I thought the censor being there was interesting, because I think it really is the final nail in the coffin of the theory of, like, is Carol just actively now and has been like a functioning alcoholic? Like, that seems to be
absolutely
like the case.
I mean, I think we already knew when they had to install the thing in the car, but
right. I think what's interesting about like, Helen stays with her, right? Like this,
right.
It adds some interesting color to their relationship, their struggles,
right? Like it happened during the course of their relationship. It wasn't like Helen intersected her after she had already solved the problem, or whatever. Like, it was clearly like an ongoing thing in the relationship that they had to navigate and created some tension. So yeah. Okay, so then what happens is Manousos Manousos asks to speak with Zosha, and Carol falls asleep with the DVD menu playing. I don't know if you know this, Patrick Klepek, but there was actually used to be a website. It no longer exists anymore, as far as I can tell. But like, there was a website that would simulate what the effect was like of falling asleep with the DVD menu still playing. Have you ever done this? You're watching TV, you fall asleep with the DVD menu playing, and then basically, like, there's a song that like loops over and over again while the TV's warming glow engulfs you.
Well, back in the day, it's like it wouldn't just, you watch streaming, it'll just boot to the next episode, and at some point ask itself, hey, are you still watching? And
are you still alive?
Yes.
Yeah.
On DVDs, you'd watch an episode, it would kick you back out to the menu. You'd have to pick the next episode. So, I remember watching a lot of Simpsons and stuff that way.
Think of all that we've lost, Patrick. We lost the ability to fall asleep in front of DVD menus, and this show is giving.
I wake up to a Netflix UI is what happens. Way less interesting.
We used to have everything. We used to be able to be like Carol Sturka in this episode of Pluribus, but now we're not. Okay. But Carol wakes up and then goes over to, like, she realizes, Zosha's here, goes over to Manousos' house, and essentially what's going on is she first, like, sees that Zosha's there and, like, pulls Zosha away, and Zosha has explained to Manousos everything, including that Carol and Zosha have had a ongoing sexual relationship, and I'm sure Manousos is not very happy about that, and Carol feels compromised by that. Then at one point, Zosha says, "Sorry, Carol, something's about to happen."
What are you doing?
Sorry, Carol, something's about to happen.
That's like the second or third time Zosha said something like that, and it's very creepy and upsetting. And what we then find out is Manousos has gotten someone else from the hive there, and he is using his negative emotions to disrupt the person's electromagnetic field.
Send another one. I think he says it to a phone.
Carol is not happy with this, and obviously everyone else is not happy either. Lakshmi calls and complains, and Carol tries to explain it wasn't her this time.
So good. Good.
But Carol busts in with a shotgun, because she wants Manousos to stop, and the way Manousos is doing it is so creepy and kind of maniacal. It's like, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. Rick, come back to me. Rick, come back to me. Like, it's okay, you're still in there, Rick. I know you're still in there. Come back to me. Man, really intense shit. And meanwhile, Carol knows people are probably dying while this is happening. She's not happy about it. And I think, to Carol's credit, one thing I do appreciate about Carol is she values human lives. Like, these are all still potentially people that she thinks we can bring back. And if that's the case, then you shouldn't be killing them, Oh,
I don't think that's what she's thinking at all in this situation.
Oh, really?
I think she's upset that Zosha's on the floor. Her new girlfriend is. Yeah. I think that's true. The furthest thing from her mind at that point, and which is an illustration of the compromising position she has put herself in as a result of pursuing a completely fake, soulless relationship with Zosha for understandable reasons. But I do not think she is thinking about, there's someone up on a mountain that just fell, or like there was someone on a ladder that just cracked their head open. I think she's thinking like, I'm in love with Zosha, and I would like her to stop having a seizure on the floor.
Okay, I mean, that's fair. That's probably the most likely scenario. Anyway, Carol gets the jump on Manousos and says, "Stop doing that, or I'm going to shoot you," and puts Manousos in the trunk of a car. The Hive all flee the city again because they say to her, "Hey, Carol, you know what the drill is. We can't be messing with somebody who's doing this to us." They flee the city. And then Manousos says to Carol, "Do you want to save the world or do you want to get the girl?"
Carol Sturka, ¿quiere salvar el mundo o quiere salvar a su chica?
Unknown word or name. Do you want to save the world or get the girl?
And that is the question before her. Again, I do want to point out a couple things about all this translating and the translation app that's going on. I just think I didn't clock exactly what app they're using. It might not even be a real one. It might be one that's invented for the show. But I just thought the way the translation app was used was overall pretty well done. Like Manousos knows some English, but he doesn't know. He's not like completely fluent. There is this thing that happens whenever they say Carol Sturka. He will say Carol Sturka like with accent. He'll say like Carol Sturka, and the translation app will say unknown word or name. And I just really I really appreciate it, because if you're taking the Hive or whatever is going on this season as the joining as a metaphor for AI and technology, as we have sometimes taken it, the idea that he's saying sentences and the app is translating it flawlessly, and then you get to the human individual, unknown word or name. Very cool. Like the machine cannot comprehend individuality. Anyway, it's a nice little like subtle thing. Also, by the way, Carol's line of "I don't speak Snap" was wonderful.
I don't speak Snap.
I just wanted to call that out as well. Like that's
and even the bits where they're speaking too fast, and so like the translation app isn't isn't sure what to translate, and like all these little bits that are just add a lot of color to these, like the scenario.
Yeah. I loved how it all played out. It just added a layer of complexity and to it that requires the characters to be more thoughtful, and therefore requires you as the audience to be more thoughtful as well. Okay. So anyway, we see Zosia and Carol enjoying themselves all around the world. Like they're swimming in pools. They're going to mountain ski chalets.
Vince, where do you want to go this weekend? Like blank check, just like what beautiful shots have you always wanted to get?
I thought there was going to be a Simpsons style joke where at the end of all that, they're like, "Boy, it sure was a wonderful day we had together." Because they're going to all these like various places in it, and conceivably they could have all done it in one day. Anyway, Carol and Zosia have a conversation on the couch of the ski lodge that they're staying at, and she asks a little bit about Zosia's ex, and we learn that Zosia's ex is dead, I think, right? Like, because Zosia's ex is not part of the joined. So I assume that they're dead. And she's kind of like wondering, hey, who is this person who is the physical person I'm actually dating, as opposed to, as opposed to just the Hive or this person that they're pretending to be. Anyway.
Well, also it introduces, the show doesn't really get into this, but like, we don't know that Zosia's gay. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like the show leaves all this to implication from setting up like different characters who've taken advantage of the situation. But like, there's a very uncomfortable quality. It's like, this is, this person, when they were actual Zosia, may have been straight and is now in a relationship, physically against their will, because Carol decided that she wanted to have sex with Zosia.
Yeah. I mean, I have so many questions, Patrick, about, I guess like if you come out of the joining, do you remember everything that you did when you were in the joining? Do you remember?
The show's going to answer that. That's going to, like 100%. That is something that's going to happen. And I'm deeply curious about.
Do you remember what everyone like? Do you have any memory of everyone else's experiences? Because that's what you had access to.
Because the
when you were
human
in
brain
joint?
could not actually, you wouldn't be able to
Right.
store and comprehend.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, do you come away? You must come away with it with something, and I assume that something might end up being important to however they choose to push back on this in the future. But I think it's also entirely possible that you just resume where you left off, and
Right.
that's it.
Maybe
Essentially
you have
we're in
no
a coma.
memory. You
right?
have no memory. I doubt it, but maybe you have no memory of it. Anyway. So then it comes out about the stem cells. We learn that they have access to Carol's eggs, and they're trying to make it so that she can be part of the joining. And we learn that Carol has a month, hopefully maybe 2 or 3 months. And that is very, very soon. That is very, very soon.
I thought the sinister undertone to that conversation, in which it dawns upon her what this relationship actually is or isn't, was like that exchange is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. Even this like beautiful, idyllic sort of spot that they're in, this wonderful, cozy moment that suggests like two like a young couple in love and figuring out what their relationship is, and the realization that this is all just a dog and pony show to essentially kind of distract her while they do what ultimately thinks going to make her happy, which is to, become part of them. It was very upsetting. It makes you, for all of Carol's faults for choosing to delude herself with this relationship, I understand how she got there, and watching her heart break in real time was tough.
Yeah. And of course it comes up because of a technicality. She says, "Oh, but you can't, you need my stem cells. You're not going to be able to access that with my permission." And then even Zosia can't stop herself from explaining that would technically, the words you just said are correct. Technically what you said is correct. And then she's like, wait a sec. I love that they kind of gave away the game.
They converted so many people with planes in the air. Like there'd be ways for them to convert her like against, in which they wouldn't have to harm her, but like essentially it could occur. My wife did have the question: do we think that they managed to take the correct material, the material from Manousos, when they had to take him into surgery? That was the first thing she shot. Like that one, when the reveal happened, my wife goes, "Oh, he went into surgery, probably invasive to some degree,
right?"
During the process, were they also able to extract genetic material, the proper material to convert Manousos eventually?
Damn. Your wife should write into decodingtv@gmail.com.
I'm here to share her thoughts.
Yeah. You're her avatar. You're right. That's very probably.
I would suspect that they probably would have.
Yeah. Okay. So then Carol says, "I gotta go home." She arrives back home. We see it's 74 days, 18 hours, and so on. Manousos is there. So 74 days. It's been a few days since the beginning of the episode, as far as we can tell. Assuming the Kusamayu thing is happening at about the same time as the events at the beginning of the episode. So it's been a few days. Manousos is studying tons of books about electrochemistry and fluid dynamics and such. And then Carol comes home with Zosia, and she's carrying a big crate. And she says to him, "You win." And he asks, "What's inside the crate?" And she says, "An atom bomb." And that is the end of season 1 of the show. Reaction when you learned it was an atom bomb, Patrick Klepek?
I thought it was a little too cute, honestly. What is she going to do with an atom bomb?
Okay, so that was originally my reaction was, really? Do you need an atom bomb? But many people have written in to decodingtv@gmail.com and pointed out that an atom bomb does also trigger an EMP, which would disrupt all electrical signals in the area. And so it's very possible that that's what they're going to... Now, would Carol have known that? I don't know. Did she watch, any movie in which an atom bomb has gone off?
I felt like it was just a cute payoff for a joke from earlier, which is fine. But like a little, I think this is one of those things that if you watch this show years from now, or like when it's all done, I don't think it would bother me at all. I'd be like, oh, that's a really funny callback. I think part of it is born out of my frustration of, oh, that's like a cute joke for the final note of a show that I won't be revisiting for possibly 2 years.
Right.
I'm not going to go to as far as to say it's insulting, but like the
Wow.
too cuteness of it just rubbed me a little bit the wrong way in the specific context of that's the note, the final bit that the show is going to end on before it cuts to black. And
I'm kind of right there with you. I wasn't like, when they got to the end, I wasn't like, yeah, Carol, you go. It was more like, really? Like that was kind of it was like, really? That's how you're going to do this? That's how like.
And again, if season 2 is, you know what I mean? Like if you were just, all right, I'm going to press the next button on Apple TV, and I'm going to go on to season 2, episode 1. I think I'd be like, oh, brilliant way to bring season 1 to a close. Oh, that's a funny.
Right.
That's great. And maybe it'll play into the plot in the future. But it's just be in this specific moment, in this specific watching, in like, that's the part of the reaction I had was rolling my eyes when I do think it's a clever, funny joke. It's just that, oh, that's the moment that we're going to end on before we go into hibernation for season 2. Is that was my true and honest reaction, was unfortunately a bit of rolling my eyes as we hit credits.
Hard same. All that said, couple things I want to do with the rest of our time here, Patrick. Number one, I wanted to just talk a little bit about Manousos' actions this episode, and then I wanted to also spend a little bit of time talking about predictions for next season, and kind of where we want to see the show go. So let's get to it. Number one, we had already predicted on this podcast that the joining has something to do with the frequency that Manousos found. And I think that is confirmed in this episode, right? Where he tunes the radio to the frequency and you can hear the pattern change when he starts screaming at the guy. Like he knows that negative emotions impact them. He starts screaming at them. It disrupts their electromagnetic field somehow, right? In a way that he can't fully explain and he's trying to explain. So yeah, I assume we will learn more about that. I don't know if you had any, I guess I just wanted to note that our previous theorizing about this is proven correct, but I didn't know if you had anything else to add about that.
Well, I wonder, there's a line that I think isn't this episode where Zosha has, which is maybe a throwaway line and maybe not, in which there's a theory on why humans develop empathy as sort of a biological sort of evolutionary sort of thing. And I do wonder if this is ultimately a show about what it means to be human, that one of the defining traits of humanity, like, is emotion, is empathy, and the hive mind cannot actually express that. They can mimic it. They can say happy, joyous, but I don't think they can actually, there's nothing about them that suggests they experience or understand a spectrum of emotion. If they had empathy, then they wouldn't have done this. And I wonder if one of the unique traits of being human, which is experience happiness, sadness, the choice to experience empathy, the fact that disrupts how the hive mind works is a funny, like the thing that will save humanity is also kind of what makes being a human both lovely and horrifying, is having to go through life experiencing all sorts of emotions. If that
can you make the connection for me a little bit? How is empathy going to lead to it? Is it the idea that
I think the fact that humanity experiences an arc of emotions, which the hive mind does not, they simply emulate it or can describe it. I think the fact that emotions disrupt the hive mind on a like communication on a physical level, the idea that humanity, one of the things that is most challenging about being a human, which is like managing your emotions, living with happiness and sadness on day to day, will ultimately be the weapon that helps undo the hive mind, I think is a really beautiful way of looking at the relationship humanity will ultimately have to push back on what's going on here.
I mean, to be clear, they do experience emotion, right? But only positive ones, right?
Do they? I don't know that I believe that's actually an emotion.
Wow. You don't think
if you can only experience
unending joy is that an emotion?
If you have no spectrum of emotion, is the one you're experiencing an emotion?
This is kind of like the topic of Christian heaven, right? The idea is that in the Christian religion, when you go to heaven, you you like praise God for eternity, and you're experiencing just joy forever. And many people think that sounds horrible, but also if you're just experiencing joy all the time, like what does that even mean? Like, is that even meaningful anymore? Right? Like, if there's no non-joy feelings, of what use is joy as an emotion? It's a good question. I'm not going to go that far, Patrick, to say it's not an experience, right? But I think you're right that we certainly have no sense of what it actually is like. Like, is it on a moment to moment basis? Is being part of the joined and being part of the hive a pleasurable experience? Is it all just kind of one middle gray? Like,
that's what I mean. Like, if you could live
right.
life with just an intravenous, like if endorphins were just being pumped into you 24/7, like you'd be experiencing a high. Like you'd be quote happy, but is that, if you know nothing but that, I guess you would describe it as happiness. But you know nothing but that. So how can you describe? How can you truly know? Which is the entire point of having a spectrum of emotions, is
Right.
that it's relative.
Yeah, fair. But anyway, any other thoughts on Manousos' actions this episode? I thought it was just really cool to see somebody who is so hardcore. By the way, for those who are curious, like what it's like to work with me, David Chen, I thought like, oh, this is actually a really good approximation of it.
Constantly having to use a translator app.
This
talk
guy,
to David.
this guy who has like really, really specific ways he wants things done and is extremely paranoid about everything. I was like, wow, this is really nailing it. So just letting you guys know. Go ahead, Patrick. What were you saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think his actions, where Carol ends up, I guess part of what makes me so excited about season 2 is it's impossible to imagine a second season of the show operating at the pace that the first season just operated at, because the stakes that it sets up, you just can't fathom a season that sat around. Like there are
let's start with this. So okay, first of all,
Yeah.
I think let's end our conversation about the finale and say
Okay.
like those are our
Goodbye.
thoughts about the finale, and we'd love to hear any of your reactions, any open questions, any theories. decodingtv@gmail.com, comments at youtube.com/decodingtv, and subscribe to Decoding TV wherever you get your podcast. We'll be discussing your theories next week on the podcast. So again, decodingtv@gmail.com. Check us out wherever you get your podcast. All right. So Patrick, let's talk about what's going on in the next season of the show. And I know this show started like many, many months before the joining, right? But the joining happened in episode 1. And since the joining, this season has covered 74 days of time. Okay. In another 74 days of time, according to the show, they will basically already be able to make Carol do the joining. You know what I'm saying? So I would agree with you that I think next season is probably going to have some urgency around stuff happening, because assuming, it takes the same amount of time, which it doesn't have to, but I assume it will cover roughly a similar amount of time. They'll need to, Carol is going to need to stop herself from being joined unless she decides that that's a thing that she wants to do. So I would agree that I'm also hopeful that the pace will be a little bit more intense next season. But yeah, Patrick, as you're thinking about next season, how do you think it's going to play out? Like, what are some of the things you think we're going to see, or what are the things you would like to see?
I guess I'm still struck by what's going to happen episode to episode. Like, I understand now there'll be a goal. I think the tension will be ratcheted up. I think the pace will be ratcheted up. But part of what the show did in this first season was we stuck with Carol as she, processed the death of Helen, met Zosha, kind of fell in love again. There's like a real arc to her character. And
Yeah.
I'm still left wondering, like, okay, so like solving the issue of her being converted to the joining, like, okay, that's like a couple of episodes, but like what happens for, like 8, 9, 10? Like, it's just, I'm still struck wondering, like, how does the show adjust its pace to continue to do character development once we have like brought in this like very specific plot point that needs to be addressed. So I'm still very fascinated to see what the shape of the show is, even if I'm excited about the prospect of having a much more concrete, specific goal that the show has to work around next season.
Well, I think one thing that Vince Gilligan shows generally do is they have the protagonist and then somebody for the protagonist to bounce off of.
Yeah.
Right. You have Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. You have Saul Goodman and let's say his brother Chuck, and then in later seasons Kim Wexler. And I think the Kim Manousos dichotomy, the Kim Manousos chemistry, whatever it is, I think it is ripe for mining a lot of drama. It is like watching these two people learn, like, because they clearly start out not in a great state, right? And watching these two people learn from each other and adapt and maybe betray each other or blah blah blah, I think is going to be compelling. That's my guess, and that's the number one thing I hope to see is like develop that relationship. Have season 2 be about that relationship. That's kind of be my guess as to kind of
I think you're right. And like if season 1 was about Carol, there's every reason to think that season 2 will be like deeply spending a lot of time with Manousos and like what makes him tick, fully fleshing him out as a character as opposed to right now where he is kind of a plot device for Carol. And I don't think the show will keep him that way. I think a lot of season 2 will be, who is he? Why is he the way he is? Like, where does this anger come from? Where does this paranoia come from? But also, these things we do know about him, where like he's feels deeply indebted to trying to pay back what he like owes to people in like a kind of silly way given the circumstances. But I expect we'll learn more about that and like why that is such a so important to him. And I expect that to be really interesting as the season goes along.
Yeah, obviously Carol is really going to try to undo the joining. I think you and I have already discussed some things. They're gonna figure out a way to set up a magnet or whatever that like selectively removes the electromagnetic field from people, and then we're gonna find out what happens then. I think you and I both had hoped that would actually happen this season.
What if it's almost a Severance situation where it's like you walk in the house and you can be unjoined, but the moment you leave the house, you're back. Right. You're back with them. So
yeah. Like who knows? Like something might happen along those lines. Could be really interesting. I am curious how the remaining unjoined, like how they're going to factor into things. The Diabate, like we never got any real resolution with that character at all.
No.
And so, but I assume that he's going to be a part of season 2 as well. We'll like learn, like Manousos and Carol will be working, and Diabate. I don't know. I think Diabate is kind of an interesting character because I think that the show hinted that this guy is living the life of Riley. He's having a great time. He's having sex with all the women he wants to. He's driving all the Lamborghinis he wants to, and that maybe over time that's going to get old. I'm curious, like, sure, Diabate doesn't want to do the joining right now, but like in a year, like, is he still going to be enjoying play acting Casino Royale, right? In the casino at the Westgate? Like, is he still going to love that? Like, I'm curious. My guess is no. My guess he's going to want something else. And maybe that's either going to be joining Carol and Manousos or joining the Hive. And like, that's my guess at least. So, and
I also wonder, as the only time the Hive have left is when like Carol got hostile towards them, and then it happens at the end of this episode with Manousos directing his like I guess negative emotions, his anger at them. What happens to the relationship between them and our characters? Yes, they're trying to hatch a plan, but it's just that. It's a plan. It's a theory. It's not action. What does, we've seen the joined using, like, oh, well, you nodded your head at us and we took that as like when pinned, like they have principles, but when pinned into a corner and their existence is threatened, what happens to a cornered version of the joined? And that I expect also to be something that plays out over the coming season. Is they claim that they want to help Carol, Manousos, any of the people who are unjoined. We want you to be happy. But what happens when like push comes to shove? And I expect part of season 2 is push will come to shove. What will they do at the behest of Carol and Manousos if it suddenly threatens their own continued survival?
Right. Will they flee again? Will they? But only it's going to be more extreme than leaving Albuquerque. It might be.
That's what I mean. Like, do they continue to self-isolate in increasingly strange ways? Like, we're all leaving the United States. Like, I mean, like,
Right.
what is the logical end of trying to avoid Carol and Manousos as they continue on their quest?
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other predictions? Any other things you want to see in the next season, Patrick Klepek?
I think part of what I really enjoyed about Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, was that they left you on cliffhangers, but you weren't quite sure what was going to happen next, and that continues here in Pluribus. Like, they left me on a cliffhanger. I'm still not quite sure what's going to happen next, and I'm excited to be surprised, and I hope that's what the show continues to do. The pace of this show was a surprise. The decisions they made in terms of the kind of story they wanted to tell, also a surprise. I'm sympathetic to being frustrated over it, but it was not the show I expected, and that's what I expected, if that makes any sense. And I hope the show continues to be like that.
Yeah, one of the things I think is great about Pluribus is you never knew what was going to happen episode to episode. Like, a single episode might take you all the way to the other side of the world and you can't predict it, or it might take you to Las Vegas, and that's what was wonderful about watching it, was that level of surprise. I hope it does maintain that in season 2 as well. But yeah, it really feels like the show, this season was 9 episodes long, and I really felt like this would be like a good halfway point for like, if we gotten here at the end of episode 5, I'd be like, yes, like the show is on, it's roaring, it's firing all cylinders. I'm loving it. But we've instead gotten here at the end of episode 9, and we've gotten some things as a result of doing it that slowly, but I don't know that it was fully worth it. But I will say that where it is now is really, really compelling, and this is a great episode of the show. It's just top to bottom, phenomenal episode filled with character development, great plot developments, and just exciting teases for the future. We will be discussing your theories, reactions, and so on the next week's episode of Decoding TV's podcast. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Write to us at decodingtv@gmail.com. And I just want to say again, it's been really wonderful to have a dialogue with listeners on the show. It's been an honor to be part of your experience of watching Pluribus. And we hope you'll join us as we cover other shows throughout the year, including Night of the Seven Kingdoms coming up on a Cast of Kings podcast in the next month, as well as shows like Fallout Season 2, which we're currently covering. And there is going to be other stuff this year that is very exciting, including Euphoria and others. So be sure to subscribe. Until then, check out Patrick Klepek's work at crossplay.news and at Remap Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. He's Patrick Klepek. I'm David Chen. We hope you have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you next week right here on Decoding TV. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.